Okay, welcome back to the channel for those of you returning, and for those of you that are new here, welcome and thank you for joining me. Here is my review of Companion, a romantic horror that I managed to catch on Monday. It was an advanced show and it comes out here in the UK tomorrow, and I've been looking forward to checking this film out. It's written and directed by a Drew Hancock, and it follows a weekend getaway among friends at a remote cabin, which unravels into chaos after a revelation that one of the guests is a companion robot. And I just want to start this review with saying, this is one of those movies, this is one of those experiences that is tainted by how this movie was marketed for me. It was affected by how much we knew about the movie beforehand. I'm not saying everyone is going to feel like this, but for me personally, I really felt like Companion would have had a hell of a lot more effect or punch if we had gone in, or if I'd gone into this movie not really knowing a lot about who or what these characters are. For example, Sophie Thatcher's character being this companion robot, I just feel like when you're watching the movie, there are moments that are designed to sort of create shock and surprise. And even though there are still moments within this movie that do achieve this, for the most part, a lot of it is just taken away. It's diminished because we know that these characters, or this particular character played by Sophie Thatcher, Iris, this companion robot, her name is Iris, that she is a companion robot. And I could just sense that while I'm watching it, I felt like, I'm sure the original intention here within this movie was that we really weren't supposed to know or have any sort of awareness who this character was until a certain point in the film, where I felt like the impact would have been incredibly stronger. But with that being said, I enjoyed this movie a lot. I really, really liked it. So the story follows themes such as love, relationships, what relationships could look like in the future, as well as abuse and survival. And, these themes are there. They are present within the story. But for me personally, and this is a well-made movie, I like the film a lot. I just really want to get that across here. But when it comes to what they are exploring with what are quite intense themes, very dark themes, I just feel like it wasn't quite as focused or as intense and edgy as it could have been. It kind of flirts with being edgy. Like, I've heard a lot of people saying that this story is very edgy. For me, it's kind of like it flirts with it. I felt like personally it could have gone a little bit more darker, a little bit more intense with what they were exploring. Maybe dial back or sort of change the approach and style of the humour within it. And humour utilised within stories like this are usually there as a moment of relief, from sort of the intensity of the story, and it can be very effective. But for me personally, the humour it didn't always work. There are moments where I chuckled, but at the same time I was thinking to myself, it kind of needed to be styled more towards sort of the themes I felt like they were exploring. It could have been perhaps a little bit darker. And, perhaps that's me just being very nitpicky here. And, I just want to sort of reaffirm here, I enjoyed the movie. I really liked the movie. Just for me personally, I just never felt like the movie proper dives into sort of the complex aspect, sort of the complexities of the themes in which they are exploring within its story. And that, along with the humour, which it works. I mean, the tone of this movie does work. They establish the tone and it is very consistent. Yet at the same time, I don't think the style of the humour, for the most part, really sort of matches the story's darker themes. And as a whole, this experience sort of flirts with being this kind of very edgy movie that does explore those kind of darker themes, but it's also afraid to get his hands dirty as well. And there's no harm in that. I mean, like I said, I enjoyed the film, I liked it, and there are a lot of people who are loving this experience. But for me, I was just looking for something perhaps with what it was they were exploring and sort of how the story was coming to life. Even though I was appreciating what I was witnessing, what I was what I was experiencing, I couldn't help but feel like I wanted something perhaps a little edgier, a little darker, a little riskier, because I did really like sort of the ideas behind the story, the concept of having this kind of robot companion and how that sort of plays into sort of the toxic side of relationships, and just putting the magnifying glass on us as humans and sort of how cruel that we can be or what we are capable of. And all of that, there's just so much, there are so many layers within this film, within this story, with what it is they're sort of touching on. But I just feel like, for me personally, it just needed to be a little bit more focused. The biggest positive for me to come out of Companion was Sophie Thatcher as Iris, this companion robot. She is amazing in this movie. How she brought this character to life was beautiful. She was mesmerizing to watch. The way in which she would bring the character to life through these moments, like, I believed she was an actual robot, and a robot that was existing within this world. Like, I felt like it was real. Like, this wasn't Sophie Thatcher. This was actually a character called Iris who was this companion robot. And it was as a result of how Sophie Thatcher brought this character to life. There's one moment where she's running, and I was just so amazed by sort of the movements within this moment, because it looked like how I would imagine a robot would run, but it also wasn't too much. It was subtle, it felt real, it felt natural, it felt organic. You could see that Sophie Thatcher had spent a lot of time sort of kind of looking into sort of how to bring this character to life in a way that was convincing, and it definitely was convincing. I was in moments gobsmacked by how she brought the character to life. She was without a doubt one of the strongest elements within this film. And Jack Quaid, I like Jack Quaid as an actor. I love him in The Boys, but I just felt like I was watching sort of almost the same character here. Like, he's kind of, I don't know, the characters kind of felt like the same, but with that kind of darker edge and sort of, a much darker, evil character. And, but it just felt like I was seeing sort of the same character. And I just, again, when it comes to Jack Quaid's performance, I just don't think it was quite as intense as it could have been. And a lot of that could have just been because of the way in which the character was written, and just sort of how the director, intended the tone of this movie to be, and the sort of the direction of it. But for me personally, I just felt like I kind of wanted something a little bit edgier and intense from sort of Jack Quaid's performance, which I wasn't getting, yet it still did what it needed to do for the story. And sort of, I didn't hate the performance, it was just another element within the film that could have just been a little bit more intense. There's a lot of people who are really praising it for its blood-soaked horror, and I just weren't quite getting that. Yes, there's blood in there, and perhaps an over-reliance of CGI blood as well, which really pissed me off, because you'd get some really neat moments when it came to the violence, but then they would sort of really kind of just take me out or ruin it, because you'd get that sort of added or enhanced CGI element on top of it. And I was like, for fuck's sake, why? But yeah. And so yeah, after listening to me, so up until this point, you're probably thinking, well, fuck, Ash, you sounds like you hated this film or just didn't like it. That really isn't the case. I had a good time. It kind of took me back to movies like RoboCop, you know, with that science fiction element as well as kind of very real dark human themes, and I just really enjoyed what it was they were attempting to do with it. But I felt like there are issues when it came to the comedy and the horror and how they both sort of work together side by side. And for me personally, I just don't feel like those two elements just didn't really work in the way in which perhaps Drew Hancock, the director and writer, intended it to. And I just, as an overall experience, I just felt like it flirted with what it could have been, and it perhaps wasn't quite as focused as it could have been. I mean, there are certain moments within its story, and again, I'm not going to elaborate on what those moments are because this is spoiler free, but it kind of reminded me of like the plot from a Snakes on the Plane film. Do you know what I mean? And that might be a bit too harsh, but at the moments, that's what it kind of reminded me of. And so as a result, it kind of diminished the sort of that more serious, intense aspect of its story. But I do recommend this movie. I mean, having said all that, I highly recommend it. I think it's great that people are loving it. And I think, you know, it's a good film. It's an okay film. It's a solid little movie that I found myself enjoying. It just didn't impact me in the way as it did with, or as it has with a lot of people. I just felt like it needed to be a little bit more focused, a little bit more powerful and intense with what it was they were exploring. But that is just preference, really, isn't it? That's just my own personal preference. So yeah, look, enough rambling on. They are my thoughts on Companion, and I will be giving Companion They're my thoughts on Companion, but what do you guys think? Have you seen it yet? Did you manage to catch it at that advanced screening at the beginning of the week? Or are you just looking forward to checking it out? Let me know once you've seen it. Do you agree or disagree with anything I've said? Let me know in the comments below and let's get a discussion going. And if you've made it this far into the video, then thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And if you want to watch future movie reviews, just some random Welsh geek rambling on, then please hit the subscribe button. It will mean an awful lot to me. My next movie review will be for The Brutalist, which releases tomorrow. And a big thank you to everyone that have subscribed recently, and not just recently, but since I've started this channel. I've just hit 450 subscribers. And so I really wanted to do a video celebrating me hitting a milestone, another milestone when it comes to subscribers, because it will always overwhelm me that so many of you do want to follow just some random Welsh geek ramble on about film. But I also thought I would do a Q&A. I just wanted to give you guys the opportunity to ask me questions, to sort of get to know me a little bit more. Like, who am I? Who am I, Ashley Thomas? Other than this, you know, just this guy who loves to ramble on about film and TV. If you want to ask any questions, whether it be film, anything, let me know in the comments below. You can reach out to me via my social media presence and Instagram, Twitter or X. And yeah, in that video I will answer as many of your questions as I can. And I've had some really great questions so far as well, so I'm really looking forward to answering them and sharing them with you all. So yeah, that's it from me for now. Thank you all again for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll be catching you guys soon.